Okay, so I just finished reading the latest issue in the Zeb Wells run. Now, I know I said in my last video that I was gonna wait for this arc to fully be fledged out before I make another video on it, but I could not help myself. Because, well, number one, you guys seem to respond really well to these videos, and videos about the Spider-Man comics actually do really well, and do better than I thought they ever would, so I'm gonna try and make more of them. And number two, I have to talk about it. I have a lot of thoughts that I need to get off my chest that I can't save for a couple of weeks until the whole run is actually finished. So let's get straight into this. So this comic is even worse than the last, and I'm gonna explain why. One thing that has come very apparent to me is that Zeb Wells really likes using magic and magic characters in these comic books. Now, this might just be a personal preference of mine, and this is just fully my opinion. There is no objective way at looking at this, but personally for me, I do not think Spider-Man or Spider-Man stories really work well with magic. Yes, there are instances where it does work well. You have your likes of Doctor Strange making cameo appearances. Doctor Strange in No Way Home is a good example of magic working well in a Spider-Man movie. But apart from Doctor Strange and other Marvel heroes, you look at Spider-Man's rogues gallery, you look at the side characters, and you say to yourself, which one of those have magic? Well, none of them. The only villain that I can really recall having magic is Mephisto. And apart from that, there may be a few other minor characters here and there that have had magic that are a part of the Spider-Man comic books or the Spider-Man mythos. But apart from Mephisto, I cannot think of anyone else who does. And I think there is a prime reason for this. Spider-Man or The Amazing Spider-Man isn't about magic. Yes, there could be iterations out there potentially in the future, maybe at some point down the line where we deal with a more mystical and magical version of Spider-Man, which would be its own thing. But in the 616 universe especially, and in many adaptations, the Spider-Man character isn't built around magic. He isn't built around magical characters, mystical entities. He's a very grounded character based in reality. Yes, you still have to suspend your belief for some of the things that happen in Spider-Man comics, like all of the technology that some of his villains use, or the fact that some of his villains do transform into giant monsters, but apart from that, magic is rarely used. And from reading this comic book, I can see why. Because the magical elements just do not fit within this Spider-Man story as much as I'd want it to. And I'd very much like Zeb Wells to tell his version of Spider-Man, and if one of his favorite stories that he wants to tell includes magic, then go for it, more power to you. He definitely likes magic, especially with Dark Web, with this new run. There's loads of magical characters in the Zeb Wells run overall, but like I said, it just doesn't mix well with Spider-Man. It's something about the mystical elements that doesn't work with the grounded nature of the Spider-Man character. It's sort of treading on the fact that anything happens, anything goes kind of thing, which very, very scarily treads on a few things that we don't want to tread over. Like, for example, Peter Parker's life is very much based in the fact that he's a brokey. He has to pay his apartment rent on time, but he can never find out how to. He never has a job, and he has to balance his work-life responsibility with being Spider-Man as well, and his relationship is always all over the place. But with magic, you're very scarily leaning towards the fact that Peter could potentially fix his life in the future by just using the very premise that is set out in these comic books. Now, I know that will never happen, but when you start introducing mystical elements and magical elements into this Spider-Man world, there becomes a very thin line as to what these magical powers introduced to this world can do, which is one of the reasons why people hate One More Day so much. It's because Mephisto has the literal power to change the timeline, to change the universe. And in fact, Spider-Man made a deal with Mephisto to save Aunt May and reverse his identity, but he had to sacrifice his marriage with Mary Jane. I think using Mephisto as an example as to why magic doesn't work with the Spider-Man character should be all that you need to know as to why magic doesn't work with the Spider-Man character. If you want to have magical elements like Doctor Strange or another established Marvel character in the Spider-Man books for a while, then that's completely fine, but personally I don't think any side characters or any characters of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery should tap into that magical element that Mephisto has, that now Rabin has in this comic as well, because I think it completely screws everything up. And we're not even on to the Mary Jane stuff, which I'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, I don't think magic works with Spider-Man at all, and I don't think it ever will. But moving on to what they did with Mary Jane. So it has now been confirmed as to how Mary Jane and Peter Parker split up. Obviously, there could be way more to this, as we still do have a couple of issues left in this run, but obviously, the main premise as to why they have split up has been revealed. So essentially, if you guys don't know, I'm going to give spoilers here, but it turns out that Paul and Mary Jane Watson got trapped in an alternate dimension to Peter Parker where time worked differently, which meant that when MJ and Paul return to the main 616 universe, however they will, it will obviously be revealed, they have had 2 kids and they are actually together, and they've been together for a very, very long time. This is so bad, and I cannot tell you how much I dislike this. Yes, it makes sense. It does. But that doesn't mean that it's not bad. You see, my main issue with this is that those kids that Mary Jane had at the beginning of the run that feature throughout prominently are actually her kids. Before this reveal, I was under the impression, and a lot of the fandom was under the impression, that those kids were adopted. But since they are actually Mary Jane and Paul's kids, this is going to mean that getting rid of those kids or retconning them for when MJ eventually gets back with Peter is going to be so much harder. And yes, they could still find a way of doing it, but the more ties you have with MJ to Paul, the harder and more convoluted it's going to be when she eventually gets back with Peter Parker. So effectively, this decision is going to burden MJ's character for the rest of time, unless, obviously, once again, they introduce the idea of Mephisto or magic and retcon it from the entire universe. But as the fandom displayed before, we don't exactly like it when the Spider-Man comics do stuff like this, because it goes completely against the character and the stories that you have built up thus far. And to be honest with you, at this point in time, I'd rather Peter just move on from Mary Jane. We found out why they're not together again. Peter's with Black Cat. Just move them on. Let them be together. Let them not be together. I don't even care anymore. If MJ's going to be with Paul and they've had kids, okay, whatever. You know what? Just let her be happy. Leave her alone now. Peter's with Black Cat. Let's move on. I don't even care anymore. I really want MJ and Peter to be together, as I've stated throughout many of these comic videos, and I think it's stupid that they're not. But at the end of the day, if they are making it so hard for them to be together at all, just leave them alone, man. I'm sick and tired of it. But anyway, I'll bring you common updates. I'll be updating you guys of when the new comics come out, and I'll give you my thoughts. If anything new happens that is kind of like this, it's very important to talk about. But yeah, let me know if you've read the comic by commenting down below. Make sure to join the members page for a really affordable price to get early access to my content if you really love my content. Also, you get exclusive podcast every single month and sporadic content throughout the month as well. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care and peace.